Great. So, yeah, as we were discussing this, I was interested in like the Diogenes reference to laying
Mm-hmm.
flat. It is like a pretty apt reference because I feel like Diogenes, yeah, is like a cynic. He was like a cynical philosopher,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like I think he was sort of concerned with like um like the possibility of like human freedom that he could like like he was trying to get like to the like bare essence of what he needed to live, like not have any external dependencies whatsoever.
Mm.
So it's like, yeah, it's the same thing with like, yeah, like a very overbearing government,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to they're turning towards a very like an extremely individualist philosophy,
Mm. I
like
see.
as like a as an opposition to that. So I was trying to think if there was like intellectual background for these movements, and
Mm-hmm.
like I think I mentioned that like the beatnik and hippie movements were kind of exploring like anti-Western forms of
Mm.
spiritualism, more or less. And yeah, I think we mentioned in the discussion like Marxism does come up a lot in a lot of those groups, just yeah, because he's also seen as this like someone who sort of like inverts Western values in
Mm.
a way, like shows you that like all these like political ideals are sort of um, like sort of a facade, or like sort of like they're like an invention to keep the dominant class in power.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the so yeah, there's a lot of different like radical thinkers, and I'd argue that like Nietzsche is somewhat influential in like the 80s and 90s like punk subcultures.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually heard some bands from Washington D.C. Like I'm sure they're like pretty bright, like I mean like pretty bright and curious kids, and like some of them like actually like cite parts of like Nietzsche's works like at the
Wow.
beginning of their songs. And like yeah, I think he's like I mean yeah, any like young kind of rebellious kid does like find it amazing like the first time they read him in particular.
Why Nietzsche?
Just because he's like I, it's hard to describe. I mean, it's like very. I mean, it's like very poetic thought, but it's like very active. Like you can tell it's all like very original ideas, and it's like it just feels so like, and it just feels so radical. The whole
Huh.
like that's like an inversion of all values that have come before.
Huh. Can you explain? Like, I just don't see the relationship between Nietzsche's thought and the slacker culture.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean, to put it like kind of simply, I guess like what like Nietzsche was kind of undertaking what he called a transvaluation of all values,
Mm.
sort of like everything, like he showed how these like values that we hold as like even our like moral values of what's the right or wrong thing to do, how those are actually contingent,
Mm.
and how those are subject to change, and that they actually have a genealogy you can trace, things like that. So in like all like ideas of progress, like Nietzsche was sort of like a generation after Hegel.
Mm.
So like Hegel was like the ultimate champion of like Western progress, and I feel like Nietzsche's like Nietzsche's showing how like morality actually like you have to dig much deeper than that to find like moral ideas that you can really believe in.
So, but doesn't sound like Nietzsche is rejecting um, Western values.
He's like
Or is it because he rejected or sort of rejected Christianity?
yeah, he does totally reject Christianity. Like and he tries yeah, it doesn't like fully match up, but he's trying to create something new that just like hasn't been spoken of before. And
Like
like
what? What is the new thing he brought up?
well well he creates this figure like this prophet Zarathustra, and like I think he thought of some of his books as almost like this new gospel in a way.
Mm.
And Zarathustra is like someone who can challenge Christ, which are with like new values that you would like equally want to abide by. and like like the eternal recurrence, like that kind of thought experiment. Would you live just this moment infinitely? Like that's a totally new way to evaluate things ethically. That
I see.
it's yeah, it's like he kind of gives you this sense that like everything's on the table, but just the way he challenges all ideas of progress, of like what's worth striving for, like I think sort of resonated with that slacker culture in a way that they're like they're questioning like is like working for this society, is like contributing to the common good, like is it really as good as people say, like is that really worth desiring, worth believing in?
I see. Huh.
Yeah, I don't think all bands read. I think a lot of bands like didn't read philosophy at all, like, but it's like I still think like that form of thought and like postmodern culture in general kind of, I still think it bled like into those into those groups through like literature or poetry, like they might not have read Nietzsche, but they might have read people reading Nietzsche. you know
So, like compared to the individuality or individualism, um, manifested in like the those movements in America,
mm-hmm.
I feel like they are too radical and too emphasizing the rebel or rebellion side.
Yeah.
Like compared to that, okay. So recently I read Schopenhauer,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the individuality he talked about, like be unique and find your own personal strength.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's more moderate and more suitable or sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Like he mentioned that like nationalism is the saddest thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you found your pride in nationalism, like then you're such a sad person who doesn't have anything unique to
Yeah.
yeah, to yourself. So yeah, I think maybe the slacker culture in America is a product of the social conformity,
Yeah.
but I think it's sort of too overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It doesn't make. It's not like. Yeah. I mean, none of these countercultures. I feel like. Although, like, I feel like hippies believe they could find some sort of new world order, like
Mm.
some like almost like a new religion. Like none of them became all that enduring. To be fair.
Mm.
um. So yeah. Like. I mean. Yeah. And yeah, you would argue, although Nietzsche is like a very influential philosopher, I feel like he sometimes thought of himself as almost founding like a new religion.
Mm.
But like, yeah, I guess like, yeah, I mean this is something you see with many philosophers where they like they try to undertake something that's completely radical and completely new, but they can never really get beyond their predecessors.
Mm.
And you start to see like later down the road how they were, yeah, still like sort of a response, or still like sort of resting on the same
I see.
on this on the same values.
Mm.
And yeah, like Nietzsche is definitely went farther than most thinkers, but
Yeah.
it's like that's still true of him. It's like sort of an inversion of like moral judgment
Mm-hmm.
that like still doesn't get beyond the basic, like still doesn't fully leave behind like that form of valuation.
I see.
But yeah, I don't think he's like too closely tied to counterculture. I was just like, yeah, I just think like there have been some groups who have like found, like especially like in the late 80s and 90s, like they're more than before, like at least found some inspiration in him.
So can will you consider Nietzsche as the counterculture in philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, there's some philosophers who still, uh, yeah, I mean the philosophers who want to do like logic, or to do, or to like who think they should just be like expanding like our forms of reasoning, they
Mm.
more or less completely disregard Nietzsche. So yeah, he does. Yeah, and he's seen as kind of dangerous in some way, and yeah, he is sort of this like counterculture within the whole Western tradition.
Um, so do you think Husserl and Nietzsche would get along?
No, Husserl probably never read Nietzsche.
Yeah.
Husserl was like a mathematician, and he was just brought to idealism because he thought that was the only way that would work.
I see.
Yeah, but like Heidegger, his successor, was actually probably the first like serious reader of Nietzsche.
Oh, what's his view on Nietzsche?
Very, very complicated.
Okay.
But
yeah.
it's let me see if I could think of like a simple summary. Like he thinks Nietzsche like he actually thinks Nietzsche is extremely important. He thinks he brought metaphysics to completion.
Oh.
Like
wow.
the whole path of Western metaphysics. But he thinks metaphysics has to be like totally left behind. Heidegger thinks that in order to answer the question of the meaning of being.
I see. So he thinks Nietzsche finished this project and we should just leave it in the closet.
Sort of, but I mean, I think he'd say there is still a lot to learn from Nietzsche. Yeah, he makes a lot of his like the eternal recurrence. Like he thinks that's like that. Like he thinks that's Nietzsche trying to construct his own ontology almost.
I see.
Like his own understanding of being.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very technical, but yeah, he was probably the first one to take him very seriously.
I see.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's a mistake to disregard either of them as just sort of like mystical like troublemakers.
Alright, sounds like this is a complicated topic.
Yeah.
So if you want us to talk more about Nietzsche or Heidegger, please comment below. Yeah, we read all the comments.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd probably need more time to prepare.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Hopefully we are still motivated to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I will be. We're adults now. But I mean, yeah, don't disregard kids. There's always a lot going on in youth culture. Yeah.
And there's always a reason for the counterculture to prosper.
Yeah, it's part of history. So.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.